sesuatu yang dilakukan?
Assalamualaikum, konnichiwa, konbawa minasan. Selamat datang dan selamat kembali ke channel saya, guys. Bermulalah video ni, episod ini Bermulalah episod Cerita Seram Animasi. Kalau you guys suka siri ini, jangan lupa like, share dan subscribe channel saya, guys. Tanpa buang masa, kita bermulalah kisah seram cerita animasi, guys. Kisah pertama yang bertajuk The Ghost of Vidisha, Scary Horror Story Animated, dan diupload oleh Nightmare Tales.
The small city of Vidisha in central India was once home to a large pharmaceutical and chemical factory, which was the main industry supporting the area. Late one night, a group of children decided to play pranks around the town. They shot fireworks near houses, scaring residents and causing dogs around the neighborhood to bark relentlessly. As the juveniles made their way around town, they eventually came upon the factory. And just as they had been doing all night, they decided to set off some fireworks to startle the people inside.
Otak budak-budak ni memang bernas, ya.
They set off a few small firecrackers. Then, they decided to light up their largest rocket and launch it into the grounds beyond. However, just as they did, the contract security guard came running out towards them, shouting at them to immediately cease their shenanigans.
Of course lah kan.
The boy with the firework realized that the security guard was in fact his father, who had been stationed at the factory that night. The shock of this made him throw the rocket to the ground. However, as he did, its main stage ignited, and it launched over the head of his father and into one of the upper floor windows on the main factory wall beyond. The boy's father was furious. He grabbed him by the scruff of the neck as his friends all began to turn and run. "Get back here," he shouted, then went on to scream, "I know where you all live." Just as his final words were drowned out by a huge explosion behind him. The rocket had landed directly into a batch of highly flammable chemicals, which proceeded to set off a chain reaction of explosions. Several of the factory workers died instantly, and several others were suddenly in grave danger as the fire rapidly spread out of control. The rising howl of screams from within echoed into the street outside as the victims slowly burned to death. The group of boys looked on in horror at what they had caused, and the son of the security guard's heart sank as his father released him and ran into the burning building to try and rescue the workers. He was quickly overwhelmed by the intense heat and was never seen again. Months after the tragedy, the burnt structure of the factory was a solemn sight and a tragic reminder for the people of Vidisha of that horrible night and the huge loss of life. The area was completely fenced off and stood in condemned ruin as the council deliberated on what to do with the area. Then, unusual sightings began to occur. Some of the townspeople began reporting seeing what they believed was the figure of a man on the grounds. They claimed the figure looked as if it was patrolling the area and looking after the charred remains of the factory. Some said it was the ghost of the security guard who had died. But every time somebody tried to investigate, the figure mysteriously vanished into the factory's surroundings.
Of
As
course
the years
lah kan.
went by, the sightings of the ghostly figure became fewer and fewer. Some people still saw him every so often, but none were ever able to get close enough to really find out who he was. That was until one evening, when a young child was taking a detour on her walk home from school and happened to come across the ghostly figure. The little girl walked right up to the apparition and realized it was the ghost of the security guard, who was just standing in place, looking up at the charred structure of the factory. The little girl then asked, "Why do you still remain? You did all you could. You're free to go. The workers don't need you to guard them from danger anymore." The ghostly security guard, without breaking the direction of his stare, replied, "I'm not guarding the factory from the dangers outside. I'm guarding my boy from the dangers within it." The security guard then pointed up towards some of the remaining window frames in the factory. The girl looked up and was frozen in terror with what she saw.
What?
There, looking down through the shattered windows, were the ghastly and vengeful faces of all the dead factory workers, wanting nothing more than to seek retribution on the boy that sealed their fate.
Semua roh-roh tu macam apa, roh dendam lah, guys. A vengeance of spirit. Sebab roh ayah dia tu nak protect dia, nak melindungi dia daripada roh-roh jahat tu yang terperangkap dalam kilang tu. So adik-adik semua, jangan main merjun di persebelahan rumah ataupun kilang. Carilah tempat yang lapang, ya. Kisah seterusnya adalah Disturbing Vacation Story 3 yang diupload oleh Lama Arts, guys. Sebenarnya video Lama Art ni saya dah lama react, lebih kurang 2 tahun jugalah. Dia sebenarnya dah lama upload video macam ni dan saya suka video dia. Dan tanpa memuasa, jom kita tengok, guys. Ni part 3, guys.
It was a summer ago. My family and I had gone to a cabin that most would use for a winter vacation, but my family wasn't like that. The cabin was located in the middle of the forest. There was no cell phone service, so, as you can imagine, I was pissed. My mom always complained to me about being isolated and confined to the comforts of my phone. I always found solace in my phone, since being around people made me feel irrational and just plain weird. My parents never understood that. Anyway, my little sister is 6 years old and was playing around in the forest. She had gone a bit too far out of my sight, and I started to get a little worried.
Part ni aku tak faham. Kenapa korang nak main betul-betul kat tengah-tengah hutan? Aku tak faham kenapa. Tak kisahlah orang putih ke, Melayu, Cina, India ke apa. Tak kisah Malaysia ke apa, kat mana, seluruh pelosok dunia. Kat hutan menakutkan tu jugalah korang nak pergi, ya. Seriously, abang tak faham kenapa.
I called out her name but got no response. I then went in the direction that she did and found nothing but a bloodied bow. My eyes widened as I frantically ran around looking for her. I found a blood trail that led into the deeper parts of the forest.
Benda tak baik, guys.
But nothing was going to stop me from saving my sister. I followed the trail for as far as it went. After about an hour, the blood stopped at a hole. I debated whether I should go back and tell my parents, but I didn't think they'd believe me, even if I did say that my sister was missing. There's no denying my parents thought I was insane. Despite my fear, I jumped into the hole. I fell for what felt like forever. Then I finally hit water. My face morphed into disgust as I stumbled through what I thought was a sewer, since there was no light. I looked up out of the hole and saw a tiny white dot. I started to walk around. There was crunching under my feet.
Entah berapa dalam lah dia terjun.
I paid no attention to it since I thought it was some dead leaves or sticks that had fallen into the sewer. That was until I fell. Some unknown liquid had splashed all over me. I remembered that my phone was in my back pocket, and I pulled it out and shined it on myself. Time seemed to slow down as I realized.
Wait, bukan kau landing kat atas air ke? Macam mana handphone tu boleh hidup pula? Naya, handphone tu waterproof kan?
What I was walking in. It was a river of fresh blood. The blood had absolutely soaked me. I held in a scream as to not alert any nearby creatures. I then ran through the connection of tunnels and refused to stop until I started hearing footsteps behind me. I stopped, turned around, and shined my flashlight around. The light from my phone landed on a distant figure. It looked so small, so maybe it was a dog or an alligator that had sneaked in. I stupidly started to move towards it, and as I got
Baik, kau
closer,
jangan.
the figure started to get clearer. I started to see that it wasn't a dog or an alligator. As soon as I realized this, I stopped in my tracks and stared. It looked like me. Its body was contorted. Their back faced towards the ground, and its head was turned right side up and faced towards me. Its legs were normal, but its arms were legs as well. It had jagged teeth, and it was chewing on what was left of my sister's head. Then, I saw my parents' head beside it. I stepped back in shock and fear. The mutant of myself charged towards me. In a state of panic, I tried to run away, but I slipped. I hit my head on the rock and passed out.
Tak berapa lama dia hilang tu guys. Oh my god. Okay, yang ini macam confuse sikit lah. Dia ke yang bunuh semua mak ayah dia dengan adik dia? Ke just halusinasi? Halusinasi. Tak tahu lah guys. Baiklah, kisah seterusnya. Kisah ketiga guys, yang bertajuk Rumah Sewa Berhantu, yang diupload oleh Fadli Amir. Dan video dia ni saya dah tengok lebih kurang 2 minggu lepas, dan saya suka, jadi saya nak react lah untuk korang semua. Macam mana reactionnya? Ada yang seram, ada yang lawa sikit guys. So apa tunggu lagi? Jom kita tengok guys.
Nama aku Karim. Aku bekerja sebagai penghantar makanan. Dan pada suatu hari itu, aku baru saja balik dari menghantar makanan di satu kawasan.
Sebenarnya banyak juga aku dengar cerita pasal Food Panda ke Grab ke cerita-cerita seram diorang tu. Tapi yang aku dengar ada 2-3 cerita saja. Okay.
Jauh. Apabila sudah sampai di rumah, aku mula merasai sedikit aneh. Ini kerana rumah kelihatan sangat gelap. Biasanya, housemate aku yang bernama Hakim jarang tidur pada waktu sebegini. Dan biasanya, dia akan biarkan lampu terbuka walaupun tiada orang. Aku berjalan dan mendekati pintu, cuba untuk membukanya, dan sudah semestinya ianya dikunci. Pada masa itu, aku tak tahu kenapa aku terlupa untuk membawa kunci semasa aku keluar tadi. Jadi, aku terpaksa meminta tolong Hakim untuk membuka pintu. Selepas beberapa minit mengetuk pintu, akhirnya Hakim datang untuk membuka pintu. Aku bertanyakan Hakim, kenapakah rumah gelap gelita dan kenapakah dia tidak membuka lampu Dan di manakah kawan-kawan yang lain? Dia tidak menjawab apa-apa dan terus naik ke tingkat atas. Aku merasakan sangat hairan dengan tingkah laku Hakim.
Macam ni, kalau macam ni, petanda tak baik guys. Baik kau belah dari situ, pergi ke lebih kurang 100 meter, call kawan kau. Tengok dia betul ada kat rumah ke tak.
Aku mula menaiki tangga untuk melihat dia. Apabila aku sudah sampai di tingkat atas, aku melihat dia sedang berada di dalam bilik. Dan dia kelihatan sedang duduk di atas kerusi. Pada masa itu, aku merasakan mungkin dia sedang sibuk mengulang kaji pelajaran. Jadi, aku bercadang untuk tidak mengganggu dia. Aku mula turun ke tingkat bawah dan pada masa itulah terdapat satu deringan panggilan daripada telefon bimbit. Rupa-rupanya panggilan itu adalah daripada Ali, iaitu seorang lagi housemate aku. Alangkah terkejutnya aku apabila Ali memberitahu bahawa mereka sekarang berada di hospital sedang menziarahi Hakim. Ali memberitahu bahawa Hakim telah terlibat dalam satu kemalangan di jalan raya dan sudah disahkan meninggal di tempat kejadian. Mereka juga memberitahu bahawa mereka sudah mengunci pintu rumah dan menutup semua lampu setelah keluar tadi dan akan balik pada lewat malam. Pada masa itu, jantung aku sudah hampir jatuh.
Bila aku dengar je, kira nanti aku cabut guys. Keluar rumah, tutup pintu, naik motor, pecut saja.
Denyutan nadi aku semakin kencang. Jika Hakim sudah meninggal, jadi siapakah yang aku jumpa tadi? Dan siapakah yang membuka pintu rumah ini? Perasaan ingin tahu membuatkan aku terpaksa memberanikan diri untuk
Rookie mistake guys. Aku rasa baik kau belah je. Aku tahu rasa ingin tahu tu memang kuat, tapi aku tak nak ambil tahu. Baik aku belah je.
pergi ke tingkat atas melihat siapakah dia. Apabila sudah sampai, aku mengintai. Aku melihat satu bayangan orang yang sedang duduk di atas kerusi. Bentuk badan itu nampak seperti Hakim. Jap. Apa yang berlaku ni? Hakim ada je kat sini. Ke aku salah tengok? Kat mana pula pergi si Hakim ni? Panjang, aku terus layu sebuah hati dan tidak melihat ke belakang. Pada masa itu, aku tak tahu nak buat apa. Tapi apa yang aku tahu, aku harus pergi sejauh yang mungkin daripada rumah tersebut. Hampir 1 tahun telah berlalu.
Kan aku dah cakap, video Fadli Amin ni dia campur seram dengan komedi. Yang tadi tu aduh, buat aku terkejut seh.
Kini, aku sudah pun berpindah ke rumah yang lain. Kadang-kadang, aku sempat singgah untuk melihat rumah yang lama itu. Rumah tersebut telah menjadi rumah yang usang dan kelihatan terbiar. Oleh kerana terlalu banyak kejadian aneh, tiada sesiapa pun yang berani menyewa di rumah itu. Sampai ke hari ini, aku masih terfikir, apa yang aku nampak hari itu? Adakah hanya imajinasi aku?
Tak tahulah guys. Boleh katakan first jump scare aku kot masa aku lihat video ni. Aku terkejut juga dengan video-video yang lain, tapi ni boleh katakan list paling scary lah. Aku terkejut. Dan lepas tu boleh pula dia angkat motor lari, kan? Okay guys, cerita seterusnya, kisah yang kelima. Okay guys, kisah kelima guys, yang bertajuk We Saw a Man Eating a Woman Face, yang diupload oleh One C Entertainment. Guys, Saya memang suka sangat video once entertainment guys. Sudah lama juga aku lihat video ni. Korang boleh tengok dalam YouTube saya ada playlist react to horror kalau tak silap. Dan tak apa, buang masa lagi guys, mari kita tengok.
With it only being a couple of weeks before Halloween, it's reminded me of a story that happened quite a while ago. It was Halloween night and I was around 7 years old, just having fun trick-or-treating. There was a house nearby that was said to be abandoned because the owner had moved out. However, no one knew the reason why. I was with my dad and a couple of friends. When he got an important business call, we all decided to go knock on that house's door. So we walked up to the house, and you could tell that it had been abandoned for quite a while now. The front yard hadn't been mowed, there were leaves everywhere, and it was overall in a very bad condition. When we knocked, the door just flew open. It wasn't locked or anything. We were out of our minds and went inside. All the furniture was still intact, and at least the inside of the house looked great. And what we found still haunts me. We found a man eating a woman's face. Screaming, we rushed to escape from there. My dad came running towards us and asked us what was going on. I told him everything, and he immediately called the police. However, the man was already gone when they arrived. To our surprise, the woman's lifeless body was still lying there. We later found out that the house wasn't actually abandoned. The man's wife had asked for a divorce and left the house. After that, the man fell into a seriously depressed state and didn't want to go out to get food. He eventually started grabbing anyone who walked by and would eat them. So it was literally cannibalism. It's been years now, but there's one remaining question in my head. If the man was just feeding off of people's flesh, where did he keep all the bodies? And why could the neighbors not smell anything from outside?
Breakup punya pasal jadi cannibal, makan daging manusia. Dunia. Baik guys, kisah kelima, kisah terakhir guys, yang bertajuk Kisah Seram di Bilik Mayat. Mayat menyamar jadi kawan, dan diupload oleh Nut Story. Dan YouTuber bernama Nut Story ni saya dah lama react guys. Scary lah juga, walaupun dengan versi kartun. Siapa takkan scary juga daripada real guys. Dan tanpa memuasa lagi guys, jom kita react.
Assalamualaikum and hai.
Waalaikumsalam.
Saya Nat. Nak ada sesuatu yang menakutkan? Siti merupakan seorang jururawat yang bertugas di tempat mayat. Setiap makhluk manusia yang meninggalkan dunia, kebanyakan mereka ditempatkan ke dalam bilik mayat jika tiada sebarang tuntutan dari waris yang terdekat. Siti yang bertugas di situ telah mendapat gangguan misteri yang terjadi di dalam bilik mayat. Kejadian berlaku ketika Siti menerima panggilan daripada jururawat di tingkat 3 yang meminta Siti untuk menghidupkan suis peti sejuk mayat oleh kerana ada jenazah yang akan disimpan di sana. Jam ketika itu menunjukkan pukul 1 pagi dan Siti sempat bertanya berkaitan maklumat tentang jenazah agak memudahkan urusan menguruskan barang-barang yang diperlukan. Sementara menunggu mayat turun, Siti mengambil keputusan untuk duduk dalam bilik tersebut dan membelik beberapa helaian kertas dan fail yang diletakkan di atas meja. Sesekali Siti akan menjeling ke arah peti sejuk simpanan mayat untuk melihat suhu sama ada ia mencapai kadar sejuk yang diperlukan ataupun belum. Tidak lama kemudian, pintu bilik mayat tersebut terbuka dan dia melihat rakannya Sarah yang merupakan jururawat di tingkat 4 muncul dan duduk di kerusi berdekatan Siti sedang berdiri. Sarah kelihatan penat, jadi Siti tidak mahu kacau Sarah. Lagi pula, Siti sedang sibuk menyusun dokumen-dokumen atas meja. Dalam masa tu, Siti terfikir tentang kedatangan Sarah di bilik mayat itu. tetapi dia fikir mungkin pihak atasan menyuruh Sarah untuk turun oleh sebab kekurangan staf. Mayat yang ingin didatangkan ke bilik mayat masih tidak kunjung tiba walaupun jam sudah menunjukkan jam 2 pagi. Siti melihat Sarah sudah tidur, kemungkinan terlalu penat. Ketika Siti sibuk mengemas semua dokumen, tiba-tiba sehelai kertas jatuh ke atas lantai berdekatan dengan kaki Sarah. Apabila dia tunduk untuk mengutip kertas itu, Siti terkejut melihat kakinya yang kelihatan pucat dan kebiru-biruan. Siti cukup kenal dengan kaki jenis itu. Rasa seram terus menyelubungi diri Siti kerana mengetahui bahawa itu adalah bukan rakannya, tetapi makhluk yang merupai Sarah yang cuba menakut-nakutkannya. Siti tidak terus mengelabah, sebaliknya terus bertindak seperti tiada apa yang berlaku. Selepas itu, jururawat dari tingkat 3 menghubungi Siti untuk memaklumkan bahawa mayat tersebut tidak jadi untuk dihantar ke bilik mayat kerana ada keluarga yang telah menuntutnya. Sejurus talian dimatikan, kelibat Sarah sudah tiada dan seperti biasa ia adalah gangguan daripada makhluk yang berada di situ. So guys, macam mana? Korang nak jadi ke jururawat yang menjaga bilik mayat? Tak takut ke?
And kalau saya lah tak berani. Memang kerja IC ni memang sesuatu yang mencabar juga, especially pada yang kerja di hospital, dan especially kalau ada bilik mayat. Alright guys, itu saja untuk hari ini. Komen di bawah yang mana satu yang paling menakutkan. Komen di bawah yang mana satu korang paling suka, cerita seram yang korang suka guys. Dan jangan lupa bagi like kalau boleh, 100 like kalau saya nak. Dan jangan lupa share dan subscribe guys. Road to 1000 subscribers on the way guys. Jangan lupa jumpa lagi episod yang akan datang, yang ini minggu depan guys. Selamat